Hi everyone, it's Denise Carter. I hope it's such an honor to be with you today, and I just hope all you moms had a wonderful Mother's Day. I want to talk today about trust. The definition of trust is firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something, to place one's confidence in, hope. We're living in a time where it's hard to know who to trust. This pandemic has caused me to question so many things. Who has the right answer for how to keep us safe? The only thing I'm sure of is that He knows the plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future, Jeremiah 29:11. I'm learning to spend more time in God's Word and less time on Facebook and watching the news. I'd like to tell you a little about my testimony and how a tiny baby taught me how to trust. Some of you know that I have a son with special needs named Matthew. He will be 34 this year and has Down syndrome, autism, and is considered nonverbal. He functions at about a 3-year-old level. Matthew was born on July 24, 1986. He weighed 4 pounds, 6 ounces, and was 8 weeks premature. He had a stomach blockage, which required him to have surgery at a children's hospital in another city. He would return to my hospital 4 days later. I didn't get to meet my sweet boy until he was 4 days old, and I didn't get to hold him until he was 2 weeks old. The surgery was successful, but the NICU doctor said that he thought he had Down syndrome and they had sent a chromosome study out. The day Matthew returned to the hospital I was at, the doctor called us into his office before we could see him. He gave us an update on Matt's condition and said that the chromosome study verified that he had Down syndrome. We sat there in silence for what seemed like an eternity, and the doctor asked a very disturbing question. He asked what did we want to do with him? What did we want to do with him? This was during a time when many children born with Down syndrome and other mental challenges were often put in institutions. Thankfully, many great changes have happened since then. Without hesitation, we said, "He's our baby and we're taking him home." Only God could have given me the courage to say that, because to be honest, I wasn't sure I was the right mom for the job. Thankfully, we had a whole church family praying through the tough days ahead. While at the children's hospital, Matt refused to open his eyes. It was touch and go for a couple of days, and he was just too worn out from trying to stay alive. There was some concern about this, and they tried many things to get him to open his eyes, to no avail. After our meeting with the doctor, I was allowed to see him for the first time. I was terrified and didn't know what to expect. I had been told to brace myself as he would have many tubes and wires coming from his body. I still wasn't confident that I was up for the challenge of raising a child with special needs, but God was waiting for the right time to let me know I could handle it. My heart was beating as I went into the NICU, and then I saw his precious little face. His eyes were closed and he was on a respirator as he wasn't breathing well on his own. With tears rolling down my face, I reached out my hand and I grabbed his tiny little fingers and I said, "Matthew, Mommy's here." He turned his face towards me and opened his eyes, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Matthew stole my heart in that moment. Matthew knew my voice, and he let me know that he was mine. It reminds me of how God hears our every prayer, and he lets us know his love for us. John 5:14 says, "This is the confidence we have approaching God, that if we ask according to his will, he hears us." One night after I returned home from the hospital, I sat in his newly decorated room crying out to God. I had to leave my precious boy in the hospital for another 6 weeks, and my heart was grieving, and I was asking God why. All of a sudden, I heard a voice so clearly in my head say, "I gave you Matthew so you would trust me every day." So I would trust him every day. Proverbs 3:5-6 in the Message version, which I love, says, "Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, he's the one who will keep you on track." Fast forward 34 years, and I'm still learning to trust and walk with God every day. not just on the challenging days, but with everything. It was never my plan to have a child for the rest of my life, but God knew exactly what I needed to draw me closer to Him. I had to learn to trust Him. And my question to you is, who are you going to trust?